what I'm talking about.
Okay guys, time to summon myself with the Tesseract. That never gets old. Oh man. Hey yo, what is up guys, it is your boy Twe here, and as promised I would make a second video onto like the skills that I missed out on the very first video, and I will give you guys a skill build. But let's start off with the skills so far. Ulti skill. That is how it looks like. So basically what you get is a charge up, and you can actually pop it from the very beginning, but let's say 60k crit, small charge onto 24 crit. If I insta pop it, it actually does the same 24k crit. So in terms of damage, you could potentially get up like 3 times higher than usual. Now if I would have to pick the ulti skill, aside from let's say the Arcana one, which is in my opinion still the best looking one in the game, and in terms of damage is probably also one of the best in the game as well. Now this actually has a startup time, and you can get hit and you can actually get interrupted with this, which to me is a big problem, but I'm not quite sure. It kind of looks like I am invincible at this point, so I'm not entirely certain. I think I got interrupted at some point into this game. You're very stationary, so it's very much problematic if you actually do get hit. Now, in all honesty, this thing damages more the bigger the boss is, because the travel time actually hits multiple times. So the bigger the boss, the more hits you do. Now, that in potential could do a lot of damage, but if I compare it, like I said, to the Arcana one, I am not as much of a fan. Now, another skill that I popped is this skill, which is probably one of my most favorite on Hawkeye, but you will need the skill points to max this out. So what you get, big ass hits, charge up time, and it does a gazillion damage. It is so gorgeous. And if you go into full PvP mode and let's say just bitch mode, you can actually go all the way from here, go on with the team, and if you can see properly, you can actually don't go up to here, but the maximum that you can actually get is very, very far. Look at that. That is just really, really insane, and the range itself is also really great. The startup time though is debatable whether people like it or not, but there are multiple ways to work this. Even with the attack speed, you'll be able to pop it in no time. So that is it for the extra skills that I have not mentioned yet. Now as for the skill build, let's get it popping. Now first off, I'll begin with the highest priority of skills. There are multiple ways of doing this. It could either be my Q or my E. Now that is the double shot or the arrow rain, and let's start out with the double shot. Now to me this is probably one of the most damaging and the top priority skill. Reason for it being, the cooldown on this thing is ridiculously low. It's 6 seconds. If you max it out, you can actually get this onto an always crit. Now that has potential of being pure damage, and this way you'll be able to level up faster than usual, because it is also very good against monsters. When I started out, I wasn't quite sure, but halfway through the game, even then, I was able to one-shot opponents with just this skill only. So basically from like level 10 to level 15 or to level 20, when you actually get enough points, because you get 5 each level. I think level 19, no, level 20 would be enough depending on if you get any other skills. Now at level 20, you'll be able to one-shot every single small monster. That means faster quests, faster leveling up, and that potentially would give this a #1 spot. Now as for the arrow rain, this is probably one of my favorite skills in terms of like utility. This allows you to either stun your enemies onto the right side with some attack speed and some extra hits, or you could go for straight up extra damage, and just nailing down your opponents is insanely worth it. So if you go with this route, it does so, and I mean so much hits. I'm not quite sure whether this skill is the extra hits or this one, because it seems actually fairly longer. But let's just check it out if I put it down like this. This seems like a gazillion amount of hits. So this potentially could do so and so much damage, because it seems as though this crits, even though I have only 16.3% crit. Now, as you can see, this will 100% crit, which is also one of the reasons why I like it. Now, there is one debate, like, okay, if you do have enough crit rate, because at the early levels you can get enough crit rate, because it lowers down the moment you level up. So let's say if you have 200 crit here on level 20, you could possibly get up to 70. Let's just give that a number. But right now I'm on level 50, and 861 only gives you 16.3%. Now that is a change that is quite debatable, but still, like I said, it has the biggest amount of damage in the lowest amount of cooldowns, and the cooldown is probably one of the best things into that perspective. So it could either be the arrow rain or the double shot. One of the two, definitely one of the best skills, and definitely should prioritize those skills. As for, let's say, a third skill, you could have two possibilities. Now, one is probably one of my most favorite in terms of aesthetics, which is the double, or like the landmine that supposedly hits in front of you. Now you can change the skill up, obviously, for a more AoE type, but in PvE, I don't think it has much use. I think this actually does a lot of damage, and you'll be able to stun the bosses for even longer than you are used to. So this definitely has a lot of potential in terms of stuns and maybe damage if you want to go to the fire route, because the burn, like, it doesn't seem like it does much, but let's say if it does like 3k burns for no apparent reason, I would say it's actually pretty good. Now that skill is definitely worth it. And let's say debatable would be the charge shot. I would actually put this onto like the maximum on the third. Now this, if you put it on down to the right route like this, you would get more attack speed on the charges. Let's pop it down. Ways and ways slower than if you put it down like this. And in all fairness, it does so much damage, and the amount of crits that you can do on a low level is definitely worth it as well. So it could actually be debatable whether this is a high priority skill as well. But I gotta say, I would still go for my double shot. Like, it is honestly, in my opinion, way better. Now, charge shot, definitely good skill, but if you want something for bosses, this skill could definitely do the trick. So I had to change up like a little bit of the skill to see if it does the most damage. I'm not Korean, so I'm not quite sure which one is which, but this way onto the route, it does a lot, and I mean a lot, of single target damage. And just to show it, let's summon a boss for no apparent reason. There we go. Let's get it. Let's hope I don't die. Of course, I guess not. And port it back. Alright, so the more people you actually hit, the worse it becomes, but that in itself could potentially do a lot of damage. Now, if you look at the HP, it does about roughly a little bit less than 40k damage, but it really depends on the crit. So this could potentially do a lot of damage as well, but like I said, I don't think this has like a very high priority. Instead, you could possibly get this skill for a lot of damage as well. So let's say the previous skill that I got, roughly 40k damage. Now if I put this one onto a boss, what would happen? There we go. We got the math right here, 80k straight up damage. Now if we put this into perspective onto charge shot, for instance, what would be the difference? Yeah, let's see if I can get a crit. But you have to take into account that if it doesn't crit as much times as you potentially want it to do, then it is very debatable whether you like this skill or not, or I like this skill whether or not. So in all fairness, this skill, although the cooldown is very long, this could potentially do a lot of damage as well. This is probably the highest cooldown skill in the game for Hawkeye. So let's list them once again. I would go for double shot in terms of leveling on the very first part. Then you could either go for arrow rain or charge shot, depending on what you like, but like I said, I like the suppression more than the extra damage. Then there is a debate whether you want to go onto this W skill, like the landmine, or you could potentially go for like the other shot that I mentioned, but this also proves like being able to do a lot of damage. Now that would be it for all of the skills that I do like. Do you have any other recommendations, or do you want to try anything out? Please make sure to do so, because even for me, the game is actually very new. But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was Twebby. Peace.